Being an artist is kind of a sign of a certain kind of dysfunction, a social dysfunctionalism anyway.
Through the shit I go through, I deal with anxiety and depression and all that shit. Just because you got money don't mean that shit don't solve nothing.
I definitely was going through a drug problem, and I think it was more my state of mind. I was just pretty depressed.
Even while successful?
Yeah, I think it started
with success.
Yeah.
But you know, I guess that's my problem.
No, but let's deal with your problem.
But if you deal with my problem, I might not be able to do these things again, you see.
I feel like I'm dead.
But you're not.
I'm alive, but I'm dead.
If you've made music or art for any amount of time, chances are you're familiar with the depressed artist stereotype.
Music has saved my life.
It almost goes without saying that if someone takes their art seriously and wants to make a living off of it, there's probably something wrong.
I mean, it's completely sick and perverse, of course. But that's what drives you, is you want to give.
Millions of artists on drugs, stuck in their studios, who can't face reality. And today, this problem is even worse with things like social media, live streaming, and all the new opportunities that actually make this existence possible for artists. But that's exactly the problem. Numerous artists at the top of the industry using their depression as their fuel. They're stuck because what once was a coping mechanism is now their career.
How often do you still battle with depression?
Oh, I'm always depressed, all the time.
Do you feel that you're happier right now than when you were broke, or not really?
Sometimes.
I had to stop because I had everything and I was absolutely broken inside.
We all know by now that success doesn't change anything, but why do we still fall into this trap? It's almost like we have no choice. We hit a breaking point and the only way out is to make our dream a reality. Artists convince themselves that the suffering they're experiencing is the key to their success, that through pain, something great will emerge. But that's a lie. We cling to this idea that suffering breeds greatness, even going out of our way to seek pain, thinking it's the birthplace of creation. And in a way, we're desperate for that validation. We believe that despite putting in less work, our suffering alone will carry us through. That's the delusion. We're taught that to create, we must suffer for what we love. And while that might be true in small doses, it becomes a prison when it's all we think about. When work becomes an obsession, it destroys us. Without new ideas, we get stuck. Our creativity dries up, and yet we isolate ourselves even more, thinking that will help us. But in reality, it just deepens the problem. Other people's input, their feedback, it's what shapes our art. And when we close ourselves off, we lose our way. And that's when the angel appears. It promises anything to pull us away from our work. At least, that's what we think. The real issue is the angel offers an escape from our deepest problem, the one we refuse to confront. And it's this avoidance that keeps us from doing what we love most. We think resistance is the problem, the thing keeping us from creating. But the truth, we can only focus on our work when we solve the real issues in our lives. Today, the biggest obstacles are social media and modern distractions.
If things are good, great, no problem. If things are bad, great, activation energy to go and make them good. If things are just about passable, you end up being comfortably numb.
Progress won't happen until we face these distractions head on. The moment we break free from them, the energy we've been lacking floods in. The ideas force themselves onto the canvas, but then there's a catch. As artists, we fear that if we leave social media behind, we'll never succeed. It feels like social media is where trends happen, where breakthroughs are made, but that's only half the truth. Social media works this way because it imitates reality. Think about it. Every action in real life changes our outcomes. Stopping at a red light could mean meeting someone new or changing the course of your entire day. Life is a constant lottery, but the problem is we isolate ourselves. We sit at home thinking that suffering alone will earn us success, that it's our only way forward. But it's real life and those real world interactions that provide the deepest fuel for our art. In a world where everyone looks online for inspiration, those connected to real life experiences are the ones who stand out. Their ideas have depth, rawness, and randomness that the internet can never replicate. Everything on social media has already been validated by millions of others. It just gets diluted. Even when we try to explore, we end up stuck in echo chambers. But in the real world, you interact with people who have completely unique experiences. Social media is just a hollow reflection of that. Yet, we cling to it. We cling to social media as our resistance. We believe that suffering through the algorithms and empty feedback will push us to success. But it just won't. When we let go of social media, we realize just how much time we've been wasting. That imaginary lens through which we view the world shatters. But then we're left with just the work. And that's terrifying.
Changing your sense of self starts with shattering your perception of yourself. It's not about building something new. We got to break apart this pot before we reform it. And the simplest way to do that is to do something that's impossible.
There's a reason why so many artists use suffering as their creative fuel. That feeling of emptiness is not just a void, it's freedom. Emptiness creates space for something new. It's in that empty space that the next big idea emerges, but only if we're willing to see it. For some artists, they have to go to the brink, quitting everything, giving up hope, even losing themselves in the process. Ironically, it's when they lose everything that they finally find the hope they've been chasing all along.
That whole experience, because there was a 6-month stretch where I genuinely wanted to die every second of every day. I was so low. It was absolute rock bottom. I'd never been that low in my life. It's like, wait, I needed to experience that because it helped me grow and evolve and put things into perspective, what matters, what doesn't, how to behave, how to move. Yes, those experiences mean the world. And honestly, take it from me, my lived experience, the worst things that happen in your life tend to be the most important parts of your life. In hindsight, you know what I mean, tend to be in a weird way, the best things that could ever happen to you because it puts things into perspective.
The best artists end up choosing their sacrifice. They pick a path, knowing full well it might destroy them. But in that choice, their vision sharpens. It's no longer about whether they succeed or fail. It's about devoting themselves fully to the craft. And in that commitment, everything changes. Often, it somehow works. All their failures, all their suffering, gives them the clarity to see what might actually succeed. Depression, in a twisted way, becomes the ultimate creative tool. Without it, much of the art we love just wouldn't exist. But here's the danger, getting stuck in that state. Instead of pushing through, many of us, myself included, sit in the pain. We don't let it transform us. We just sit there, paralyzed. That's where we fail. But the emptiness, that space where everything falls apart, that's where the real opportunity lies. That's where artists find their edge. They don't just sit with the pain. They learn to weaponize it, turning it into something that makes them stand out. This no man's land is where new, groundbreaking work is born. It's where your individuality collides with what the world craves, creating something impactful and fresh. Only those who are familiar with chaos, those whose minds are as chaotic as the world they find themselves in, dare to enter this space. And they survive because they know it. They've lived in it their entire lives. When you stay in that space long enough, the answers come. It's the zone where the rules no longer apply, where what seems impossible becomes reality. It's that last 1%, the part no one else reaches for, that changes everything. Because the most successful artists have mastered themselves, the world ends up bending to their will. And depressed artists, they have some of the deepest self-knowledge out there, and that's what gives them their edge.